Today, I'm going to share with you a revelation that the Lord gave me concerning Joseph. I've created a playlist. The Lord has been downloading things to me about Joseph um, based on the hour and the time that we are in. And I highly encourage you to go and watch and follow that series, this series that's coming out. Um, a lot of you may not know the reason why I started this channel about 4 years ago, 3, 4 years ago, is because I had a dream of a famine that is coming. It is the very first dream that I share on this page. And I've mentioned that dream over and over in several of my videos. Well, the Lord recently directed me back to the book of Genesis to read the account of Joseph again, and he began downloading some information that I believe is going to be very critical. And one of the things that he highlighted is the fact that Joseph created a new financial system within Egypt, and most of the Egyptian civilians did not even know. They didn't even recognize it was going on. So I'm going to read directly from my phone. I'm going to do this study a little different than I usually do when I pull up the screen, just to be a little bit more interactive, because this is very, very important, and it's very critical that we try to engage. If you just want to put your phone down and do some other stuff while you listen, do that. But I highly encourage that you listen to this, because this is going to give you critical insight on the way the coming events that are coming right now. Right now in Iran, there is a blockage in the Strait of Hormuz, and people think it's all about oil, but it's about fertilizer as well. 80% of the world's fertilizer goes through that strait, and they are blocked and they can't get through. What do you think is going to happen if that strait stays closed for a long period of time? They can't get the fertilizer through, and the season of planting right now is starting, and they can't get amount of crops in the ground. I'm just trying to set this up for you all for what's coming and what the Lord has given me. All right. So we know that in the book of Genesis 41 that there was a famine in the Pharaoh had dreamed a dream of a coming famine. And Joseph was the only one that can interpret the dream. I'm not going to go too deep in that, but he was in the dungeon. He was brought out. You guys can go back and read it. And he interpreted the dream of Pharaoh. And he said, this was the interpretation of the dream. This is Genesis 41:29. Behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt. So there's 7 years of plenty is and 7 years of famine, 14 years total. Behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout the land of Egypt, and there shall arise after them 7 years of famine, and all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land. I just realized that says forgotten in the land in the Egypt. All right, so now I'm going to skip down to verse 47. And in the 7 plenteous years, the earth brought forth by handfuls. And he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities, the food of the field, which was round about every city, laid he up in the same. And Joseph gathered corn as in the sand of the sea. He gathered every bit of corn. If there was a kernel laying on the ground, Joseph gathered it. All right. Joseph gathered corn as the sand of the sea, very much, until he left numbering, for it was without number. They didn't even take an account for how much corn in those first 7 years. Joseph gathered up so much corn they couldn't even account for it. But what they did is that in each city they set up storehouses, and Joseph had Pharaoh to appoint officers over those storehouses, and I'm sure maybe a small, a security team to secure those storehouses. Now, when I read this, I realized that who was he gathering the corn from? It must have been from the Egyptians in the land that was, farming, or their land or whatever. He was buying or gather, he was getting it from him. Maybe Pharaoh had some farmland that they were, getting, but I believe he was going wherever. If Pharaoh had land that there was corn being grown on, or the citizens of the land who were planting corn, Joseph was gathering the corn from them as well. And he was putting it all into the storehouse for 7 years, which is unimaginable to me. 7 years he did this. All right. So we're going to skip on over to verse 53. We're going to skip down to verse 53 and say, and the 7 years of plenteousness that was in the land of Egypt ended, and the 7 years of dearth began to come, meaning the famine. All right. According as Joseph had said, and the dearth was in all lands, but in all the land of Egypt there was bread. And when the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said to his own people, to the Egyptians, he told them, go unto Joseph. What he said to do, you do. All right. And the famine was over all the face of the earth. It just wasn't in Egypt. It just wasn't in Canaan. It was all over the earth. All right. And Joseph opened up all the storehouses. Remember all the storehouses he had with the corn, and sold unto the Egyptians. And the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt, and all countries came into Egypt to Joseph for to buy corn, because the famine was so sore in all the land. Now, keep in mind, this was corn. I want you all to really get that in your mind. He was exchanging gold and silver. The people were exchanging gold and silver for corn. Keep that in mind. All right. All right. So now I'm in Genesis 47:13. All right. So keep in mind that the famine has gone on probably another year or so. All right. 47:13 says, Now, now there's no bread in all the land, for the famine was very sore. We're probably in year 4 or 5 here. So that the land of Egypt and all the land of Canaan fainted by reason of famine. And Joseph gathered up all the money that was in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan for the corn which they bought. They spent all of their money on corn. And when money failed in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came unto Joseph and said, give us bread, for why should we die in thy presence? For the money faileth. Joseph caused a currency collapse in Egypt with corn. Y'all, when I had that revelation, I said, oh my gosh, the government caused the currency to collapse in the region. All right, let's keep on going. And Joseph said, give cattle, and I will give for your cattle, meaning I will give you bread for your cattle if money faileth. If the money fails. It's almost like you caused the scenario, but you are saying the currency failed. in reality, the currency in Pharaoh's house, it still holds value, but because there's no currency circulating in the local economy, now the goods, the value of goods in livestock and things like that has increased. And he exchanged bread for their cattle. Now I'm going to show you all a chart on this in a minute, but I want you to stay with me here. He gave them bread for their cattle. All right. And it came down here and said, and Joseph gave them bread in exchange for horses and for the flocks and for the cattle of the herd, for the asses, and he fed them with bread for all their cattle for that 1 year. And when that year ended, they came unto him the second year and said unto him, we will not hide it from my Lord how there our money is spent. For Lord also hath our herds of cattle. There is not aught left in the sight of my Lord, but our bodies. We ain't got nothing to offer you but our bodies and our land. And look what they asked for. Wherefore shall we die before thy eyes, both we and our land? You gonna let this labor and land go, and you're gonna let us die? Buy us on and our land for bread. This is a new this is a new financial system that was set up. And we and our land will be servants unto Pharaoh, and give us seed that we may live and not die, that the land be not desolate. And Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh, for the Egyptians sold every man his field, because the famine prevailed over them. So the land became Pharaoh's. And as for the people, he removed them to cities from one end of the borders of Egypt and even to the other end thereof. So for bread and for seed, they sold themselves into servitude to Pharaoh and their land. And then it says, it came down here and it says, only the land of the priests bought he not, for the priests had a portion assigned them of Pharaoh, and did not eat their portion which Pharaoh gave them. Wherefore they sold not their lands. Then Joseph said unto the people, behold, I have bought you this day. Have mercy, Lord, and your land from Pharaoh. Lo, here is seed for you, and you shall sow the land. Sow the land, sow the seed in the land which you used to own. The same land that you gave for bread. Here's seed for you to plant in your own land. Now, Joseph Ben had the seed. Why didn't he give them seed the first time they came? Have mercy, Lord. He said, lo, here is seed for you, and you shall sow the land, and it shall come to pass in the increase that you shall give a fifth part unto Pharaoh, and 4 parts shall be your own, for seed of the field, and for your food, and for them of your household, and for food for your little ones. And they said, thou hast saved our lives. Let us find grace in the sight of my Lord, and we will be Pharaoh's servant. All right, guys. So this is a quick little chart that I set up real quick, nothing fancy. To just try to give you a visual of Joseph's financial system that he set in place. All right, and it all started from Joseph gathering all the corn in Egypt. That was the catalyst of this financial system, was corn. All right. So what happened first? The Egyptians gave gold and silver to Joseph in exchange for corn. Now, I don't know how long this exchange right here happened, but um, it was over a period of time for Joseph to collect all the money that was in Egypt. All right. Then once that happened, once he bought all the corn in the land, the currency collapsed. The people came to him and told him that the money failed. Joseph didn't tell them that the money had failed, but he had created a currency collapse in the region, which caused hyperinflation. All right. Now they don't have any more money, or their money, even if they did have money, the money that they have wasn't enough to even buy bread. All right. So they came to him and said, "Give us bread." And the Joseph told them, "Okay, for me to give you bread, I need your cattle and your flock." All right. So they gave him cattle and flock for bread. And 1 year they went through all the bread. The Bible says after 1 year, they came back to Joseph and said, "We don't have any more bread. Only thing we have is our bodies and our land." What did he do? He offered them bread and seed for their land and their servitude unto Pharaoh. And you can see the unequivalent exchange that happened during the famine. And this is very important for you all to study and understand what happens in the time of famine, because none of us has lived through a famine. It is a time like no other. We've lived through a recession, but we've never lived through a depression, not a severe. We have no idea what a famine is going to be like. And what was the outcome? They owned nothing, and they became servants to Pharaoh and had to tithe a fifth of everything that they grew. The land that they used to own, they now had to work that land that they no longer own. And they praised Pharaoh. But in the end, what did they lose during the famine? 7 years it took them to lose all of their money, all the gold, the silver, the cattle, the horses, the flocks, the land. They sold themselves into servitude for bread, seed, and corn, and had to till the land they no longer own, and also tied a fifth to Pharaoh. So look at the left side of the chart and look at how wealthy and how well off the Egyptians were. They had gold, they had cattle, they had horses, they had flock, they had land. And Joseph used corn. The only three things that really happened here, he used corn to create a currency collapse and then create hyperinflation. And he gave them bread and seed. Guys, listen, it's important because when this famine hits, I want you all to understand that it is going to be so um severe when it hits. And a lot of people, the Bible says that in the 7 years of plenty, they forgot when the famine hit, they forgot all about the 7 years of plenty. Meaning, if you see the government moving different, if you see them putting in different types of laws or doing different types of things, you need to be paying attention. You need to be paying attention. And I'll give you all one example. If you all remember a few years ago, the government announced that they were no longer going to be printing pennies. They said that it was too expensive for one penny to print to create a penny, right? And I thought about that thing for a little while, and I'm like, then soon after that, you've seen a lot of data centers and everything popping up. Well, what do you think goes into those data centers? It needs a lot of copper. And so instead of forcing the people to turn in their pennies, their copper pennies or whatever, eventually they know, okay, if we don't make no more pennies, eventually all the pennies will circulate, as the retailers or whatever, gather up pennies or whatever over probably the next 7 to 10 years. Will All the pennies will come right back to us. All right. And some of those pennies were pure copper. Eventually, all the pennies is going to make their way, and they're not going to. It's going to happen, and people are not even paying attention. All right. Another thing is the crypto. I've preached about this. I've talked about this several times on my page. They are laying the foundation right now while people are asleep and slumber. They are laying the foundation right now for a brand new financial system. And what's going to happen is one day, and from what I can gather from this revelation, is that they're going to fully implement this at a time where it's going to be chaos and famine and just disorder. And one day people are going to wake up, and it's almost going to be like a flip of a switch, and people are not going to even realize that there's a new financial system in place. And because they are not invested in crypto, which can have exponential gains in a very short amount of time, the money, the fiat currency that they have is going to devalue. It's going to devalue, and they're not going to have enough to be able to keep up with the inflation, because the government is going to cause the currency to collapse, and they're going to create inflation. They're going to create hyperinflation. All the stuff you see going on in the world, in Iran and everything, who is it being caused by? It's being caused by the government, the oil prices and everything, the wars and all of this. They're going to cause the currency to collapse. And then people are going to be in a desperate situation. And the Bible says that in the end times, that a day's wage, I have to go and look it up, a day's wage would be the equivalent of a piece of bread, which is the same thing that happened in the days of Joseph. And even more severe, some people are going to be so decimated and famished to where they're going to have to sell their services to the government. All right, y'all. So I'm coming to an end of this video. I don't want to drag it out for too long, but I wanted to pull my page back up, and I wanted to show you all here. This was 3 years ago. I did this video about a famine, a food shortage that is coming. And the Lord gave me a dream. It was the very first dream that I posted on this page. All right, and if I'm being honest, I had this dream. I posted this dream 3 years ago, but the actuality is that I had the dream in 2000 and either 20. Let me click on it real quick, because sometimes the dates be off. I want to see if I selected the actual date. Okay, yes. So here it is. I posted the dream on October the 30th, 2022. But I had the dream, and I mentioned this in the video. I had the dream November, if I'm not mistaken, I had the dream November of 2021. And if we're using of the same measure that Joseph used to interpret Pharaoh's dream, we are currently in the 7 years of plenty. And if we take 7 years from November of 2021, when I had the dream, to 7 years, that put us at 2028. All right. And so right now, things are boiling over in the Middle East, and a lot of those countries provide grain to the rest of the world and fertilizer to the rest of the world. And so you're eventually there's going to be a supply shock. So what should you be doing right now? You should be figuring out how to garden. I just bought some raised beds the other day. I'm going to try to figure out how to garden. Put back canned goods. I did another video on my page where the Lord gave me he gave me a dream recently that the barter system was coming back. Guys, everything on my page is, and I didn't realize this, it all ties in to the 7 years of famine that is coming. Crypto ties into that, bartering ties into that, being able to go start growing your gardens and learning how to can fruits and vegetables and things, and how to store grains and rice and things like that. Do all that you can so that you can prolong the season of time. All right. So, and I'm not saying that we'll be down here, the Saints are going to be down here for the full 7 years. My thing, my thinking is we may be here for the first 3.5 years. So if you could get at least 3.5 years, because after the 3.5 years, the mark is coming, and the mark is going to, you won't be able to buy or sell. All right. So I just wanted to share that with you all, and let me know what you think of this in the comments. I think the revelation um, is needed for this day and age, and I would like your feedback. All right. God bless, and y'all take care.